Welcome into the August 18th episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. A non-update on the Rasmus Sandin contract standoff with the Maple Leafs. We'll touch on that. Canada booking their ticket to the semifinals in the World Junior Championships. And then Bouchard, an old buddy of mine from Red Cape Sports, he'll stop by and he'll help us decipher the top hockey cards available, the top rookie cards in the newest set that was released on Wednesday, the Upper Deck Extended Series, David. Excited for that conversation. All that more coming up on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, a one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother from TSN's Overdrive. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also writer for the NHLPA. And Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can also now catch us up on video format on YouTube. Just search up Locked On Leafs on YouTube, hit subscribe, and get that daily content directly to you. And make sure also hit that little notification bell. That way you get that notified whenever we upload new content. All right, fun episode today. We'll actually get to talk some Maple Leafs a little bit in a way. There was a story that came out. Luke Fox of Sportsnet put out a story about Rasmus Sandin and the Maple Leafs still far apart in contract negotiations. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then also Canada beating Switzerland 6-3 in the in the quarterfinals to advance to the semis. We'll talk about that game and kind of put a bow on the quarters. And a good friend of mine, Bouchard, going to stop by and we'll chat a little bit about some hockey cards. The new Upper Deck Extended Series was released on Wednesday, Dave. I know I'm more of the hockey card buff than you are, but I think that it's still an interesting conversation and perhaps some of our listeners will enjoy it as well. If you do end up enjoying it, then please let us know in the comment section down below. If you want some more hockey card discussions, I will be more than pleased to bring that to you. Speaking of hockey cards, I do have a Rasmus Sandin Young Guns card, by the way, Dave. Not an overly expensive card, but I believe it come from 1819 Upper Deck. Still far apart in contract negotiations, though, according to Luke Fox, who apparently Lewis Gross, the agent of Rasmus Sandin, spoke with Sportsnet and told them that negotiations are going, quote, nowhere. Not that surprised, I suppose, but what do you make of this latest report, Dave? Are you still worried that we're sitting here? It's now August 18th, and negotiations still going, quote, nowhere.
It feels almost like the William Nylander situation because actually it's the same agent, believe it or not. I'm not like concerned because Rasmus Sandin isn't the only young RFA that still hasn't gotten a deal done. There's actually a lot of them out there. Teams right now are just it feels like first off, it feels like some GMs are on vacation because literally have had nothing going on the last while. I just think like they're saying it's going nowhere. We don't know exactly where, like which side isn't doing the talking really. Like this is clearly obviously an agent trying to drum up something because he's trying to look. His client is probably getting a little frustrated that things aren't going maybe where he wants it to go.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's at, because I would be surprised if Rasmus Sandin didn't receive matching contract offer from what Timothy Liljegren received earlier this offseason, right? It was what, 2.8 million over 2 years, so 1.4 million AAV. I would be very, very surprised if Rasmus Sandin did not receive the exact same contract. And Liljegren said, yep, I'm good with this, sign it. Sandin, not quite good with this just yet. But it might not even be the number. Like we did hear prior that it sounded as though it wasn't necessarily, I think, the number, but also opportunity means a lot to Rasmus Sandin. He wants to be a full-time NHLer at this point in his NHL career. And as it stands right now, they already have 6 guys under contract. I almost wonder if Sandin is refusing to make a deal. Like, he will not sign a contract with the Maple Leafs until one of those 6 defensemen are moved and he becomes, a guaranteed nightly fixture on this roster based on the fact that he would be included in that top 6. I almost, it's almost feels like that's the direction it's going, or a trade, I guess is the other direction it could go. But I feel like I'd be surprised if Sandin ends up signing here with the Leafs and becomes one of the, one of 7 guys and becomes a rotation, much like we saw a season ago. I feel like he'd be willing to kind of dig his heels in a little bit, and maybe we don't see Rasmus Sandin sign a contract anytime soon.
And correct me if I'm wrong here. I heard that there was some maybe hurt feelings that he wasn't in the conversation to play during the playoffs as well. Like he was.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, against Tampa, like he was activated, but he said, I don't want to play him in a series like this. He hasn't played in a while. Also, if you'll recall, I remember too. He also didn't get to play in the bubble, and they had chosen to also play guys the season before. Guys like Mikko Lehtinen got opportunities before he got opportunities. Like there's been a couple of instances where he's felt slighted by the organization. And I don't blame him for really digging in, because he's saying, look, how many times have I been in the mix and haven't been selected? At least if I'm a guaranteed, one of the top 6 guys and for sure going to make it, there shouldn't be anyone to go in over top of me. So I'm not making a deal until that's the case. That's where I feel like they're at, or that's where Rasmus Sandin is at the very least.
Yeah, and we also heard Kyle Dubas say pretty much trying to throw water on this fire that Lewis Gross is trying. Like, I understand where the agent is coming from. Like, and you know what, Rasmus Sandin has every right to be frustrated, because I'm sure he's hearing a lot of the he hasn't reached his potential considering he's a first round pick and all those things. He's dealt with a lot of frustrating injuries that have come at inopportune times for him and have stunted his development in a way. So I can see where he feels on that. At the same time, we also know that he hasn't exactly, blown the gates off in terms of earning that opportunity at the NHL level either. So I'm sure that's probably where the Leafs are too, is just like, we feel we have 3 guys on the left side that are ahead of you, unless the Leafs are still debating whether they're going to move a Jake Muzzin, because the more I've been thinking about things lately, and like, as much as I'm not a fan of Justin Hall, we know how the Leafs feel about Justin Hall. We know how Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas do. They're likely less inclined to move him, and if they're going to make room for Sandin, it's going to come at the expense of like a Jake Muzzin. But then you're taking even a bigger gamble by doing that and putting even more pressure on Rasmus Sandin. But maybe that's the pressure he wants. Maybe that's something that will light a little fire under him.
Well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to take out Muzzin, insert Sandin into the lineup, right? Like, you could move Giordano into a top 4 role, defensive role, and then end up not even defensive, but just like a top 4 role, and then have Sandin playing your third pair. It doesn't necessarily have to be you are now Jake Muzzin. You need to do everything Jake Muzzin did, or else you are a complete failure. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case.
Like that, like it's kind of, I was like, he's gonna get into the lineup, not exactly take Muzzin's spot,
Right.
because we already know that just would not work in terms of, like, they play 2 different roles.
For a while, I was a team trade Muzzin. I've been on this podcast. I've said that probably half a dozen times. Sandin. I've been teams trade Sandin. I've said about a half a dozen times where I've came on the pod and I'm like, you know what? I think that this team, it was like around the draft and free agency. I'm like, yeah, trade him, bring in this, bring in that. But now that we're this far into the summer, there's no more cap space to go out and do anything anyways, or bring in a player. I'm at the point where I'm now reassessing my evaluation of the whole Rasmus Sandin discussion. And now I'm thinking about this too. Like, 2 years from now, when Muzzin is just, well, first of all, his contract's going to be up in a couple of years, and as will Mark Giordano. He'll be up. I think Brody only has a couple of years left on his deal too. 2 years from now, when that guy's, coming into his prime, you probably will want Rasmus Sandin in the mix. You're going to want that guy in the fold. So I'm not sure. Like, if you're thinking past 2 years from now, and you're thinking to have some longevity with this Leafs roster, he's someone you're going to want in the mix. So I don't know if dealing him away is really something that the Leafs would be too keen on either, unless, of course, they're getting a defenseman who they feel can be just as good and also has that long-term control. But either way, I'm starting to soften on the stance that Sandin will be traded by the Maple Leafs. I don't think it's going to happen, but I also believe that Sandin is going to dig his heels in. I don't know where it's going to go. I really don't. I wouldn't be shocked if he holds out and doesn't attend training camp until we have some sort of shoe drop here with this team. But like you said, everyone's been on vacation mode for the last, seems like 3 weeks or so. There's been nothing on the free agent front, not much on the trade front, and Rasmus Sandin remains a restricted free agent. And we're sitting here still scratching our heads. How could they potentially negotiations be going nowhere? It's now been months where they've had chance to make some ground and nothing. Also, not much of the prospect pool on the left side after, Rasmus Sandin, once those older guys age out of this lineup. So, yeah, he's somebody who the Leafs definitely see as part of the future of this team. Maybe not right now this year, but if they can somehow tell Rasmus, wait, your time is coming, let's be patient, maybe that's the way that they can kind of get through to him and get a deal to work. All right. On the other side, we'll chat. We'll talk about Canada's win over Switzerland to advance into the semifinals in the World Junior Championships. We've got some hockey card discussions coming up a little later as well. My pal Brid Bouchard from Red Cape Sports, he's got a YouTube channel talking all sports card investing. He'll join us to talk about the top young guns from this year's extended series set, which released on Wednesday. So all that coming up on the other side. But first, Dave, how about a word from one of today's show sponsors?
Yep, and that is NHTSA. Drive sober or get pulled over. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few become a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's not a big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyways? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's life forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. And Dave, you got some love in the statue department from yesterday's episode. Everyone wants a Dave statue. I told you. I knew there was people who were going to want Dave statues. I told you. You thought that people were going to go. No, people want statues of Dave. You know why? Because you're bald. People like bald statues because hair looks weird on a statue. That's why.
My favorite video about a statue was the one when that made about David
Ronaldo?
Beckham.
Oh, was it Beckham or Ronaldo?
No, well, Ronaldo had a good one too, but David Beckham, they made one. The LA Galaxy made him one, and James Corden played a little prank on him. They made like a statue that looked absolutely like terrible. It was a fake one. He thought it was a real thing, and he actually like pushes it over, and they're like, no, that's the fake one. Here's the real one. And yes, also Ronaldo, probably one of the worst statues I've ever seen.
Yeah, unfortunately, his was real. Like that was a real statue. Unfortunately, yeah, that was an awful one. But you'd have a good looking one, my friend. Your statue would be pristine.
That's weird for sure.
For sure. Maybe they're starting to build a statue of Logan Stankoven potentially after the game that he saw tonight over in Edmonton. I mean, well, there's some obviously better statues to be made in Edmonton, but that's my weak way of transitioning into this game. All right, folks, call me out. That was a terrible transition. I'll do better next time. But Logan Stankoven, man, like that guy, he's been very quiet actually throughout this World Junior Championship tournament, but really helped Canada beat Switzerland today. They had a 6-3 win, advancing to the semifinals, and if I'm not mistaken, barring some sort of upset from Czechia and USA, who are playing currently as we're recording this, Canada should play Sweden in the semifinals, correct?
I believe you are right on that. I was actually going to check that because I know that we're waiting to see what the result of the Czechia USA game. Sweden obviously beat Latvia very unconvincingly too.
Yeah, that was kind of bizarre. The fact that they were tied with like 10 minutes to go in the game, it's like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what? But Sweden ended up winning it. That Emil Andre kid, by the way, he's really making a name for himself in this tournament. He's a Flyers prospect from 2020. But Canada, really good win tonight. Well, actually, it was a little closer than I thought it would be, to be quite honest with you. It wasn't their best performance, to say the least. Stankoven played terrifically, though. So we'll talk a little bit about the positives before we kind of maybe talk some negative aspects. But Stankoven scored 2 goals and assist, was all over the ice tonight. What'd you make of his performance?
I thought it was very much needed. I didn't think, the top guys who kind of been carrying Canada, McTavish, Bouchard, like that line wasn't really at their best in this game. Like Switzerland knew the assignment. They had to try to limit Canada's most dangerous players. And look, if you get beat by Canada's secondary players, that's kind of what makes Canada so good, is that they usually have the depth to step up. And we hadn't really seen it as much in this tournament. Like, for a lot of these guys, this was kind of a coming out game for them. So I actually think that was an important result for Canada to see that, because you need to see those guys lower in the lineup produce when your top guys are shut down, because it's not going to get any easier. Like, even the game against Finland was tough too, but they eventually found a way to get where they get the win. Yeah, I mean that empty net goal too. It's a thing of beauty. Like,
Just
Ken
the
Johnson.
play along the boards, yeah, to get him the puck. It was a really good play, absolutely. First game though in the entire tournament where Connor Bedard didn't hit a score sheet.
Bust.
Bust.
Absolute bust.
He's a bust. How do you not score or get an assist? Even a secondary bust? No. I mean, it's gonna happen. The kid's 17 years old. I mean, the fact that this is the first international game he's played at the World Juniors, even if you include the games that were played back in December, it's the first time that he has been held off of the score sheet. Not the end of the world, people. Definitely not the end of the world on that one. But yeah, Stankoven was terrific tonight, and I think Canada will have to play a better game. Whoever they have to play next, whether I believe it'll end up being Sweden. If not, I think it'll be Finland, but it most likely is going to end up being Sweden, assuming that the Americans take care of business against Czechia today. And for those who are listening to this, you obviously already know what has happened in that game. So I guess you'll know exactly what the matchup is. But so those games are going down Friday, I believe. Friday,
Yeah,
I think.
Canada is playing at 2 p.m. local time, so that'd be 4 o'clock Eastern on Friday.
All right, so 4 o'clock on Friday, you can watch that game. Canada, Switzerland, they'll duke it out. Canada and Sweden, we believe, they'll duke it out on Friday. All right, Dave, why don't we take one more quick break, and then when we get back, Bouchard going to join us here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, chat a little bit about some hockey card content. The new Upper Deck Extended Series was released on Wednesday, and the new 50-player Young Gun rookie set was released within the Extended Series. That's the top subset for all the rookie cards that people like to chase. He's going to give us his top 5. His top 5 rookie cards that are in the set and chat a little bit about it as well. So that's what we got coming up on the other side. But before we get there, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and that's betonline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, podcasts. They got you covered. Head to BetOnline today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs, and you'll notice if you're watching on YouTube, there's another gentleman who has popped up onto the screen here to help us kind of close out this podcast. If you're listening, it's my good pal Bouchard from Red Cape Sports. Does some sports card investing and collecting, and with the release of the brand new Upper Deck extended series, I thought who better to get than my pal Bouchard to kind of help us figure out exactly who are the trace cards in this year's extended series set. Before we kind of get into that, for those who are unaware, I guess, of how the hockey card market goes, can you just explain what the extended series is and, what the hoopla is over it and maybe the reason why people are excited about it?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I mean, thanks for having me on. For those of you who don't know, Mike is also the hockey card guru. This is the man, just as much as I know. Mike knows just as much, if not even more. So, rest assured, Mike is definitely going to give you guys the greatest top 5 that he can come up with. Now, what is extended series? So, basically, you have series 1 where Upper Deck typically has 1 or 2 good chase cards, and then the rest, so okay, not the greatest, could do better. And then they make you wait for, the better rookies, which tend to be in series 2. And then again, they fill it out. From my experience, extended series tends to be a lot of older players, a lot of European players who, I'm just going to come out and say it, Mike, not so investable players. From my experience, there's always that maybe one guy who, if you hit him, you're going to be really happy and you're going to make your money back. But for the most part, I mean, if you're playing the odds game, you're probably not going to pull a good card. I tend to stay away from extended series myself.
It used to be like the Young Guns is what you're chasing, right? The Young Guns rookie cards. And, they used to be included in the SP Authentic series. And then last year, they rolled out this new Upper Deck Extended because they had so many guys play their first games in the pandemic that they had an excess of rookies. And they're like, you know what? Why don't we create a brand new set? Make more money, Upper Deck said. So they announced this extended series. And I wasn't sure if they were going to do it again this season, but obviously they did. And they found another 50 rookies to put inside this set, which is an upgrade because last year, if I'm not mistaken, there was only 30 players that they had in their Young Guns set, I want to say.
Not many at all.
So they have a full 50 player set, which is what you typically get in Series 1 and in Series 2. And I was looking today. It sounds as though it's coming out about $130 for a hobby box. But we want to talk about some of the cards that are in this set and some of the top rookies that you can get if you're looking to go out and get these rookie cards. So we both, Brid and myself, Dave, we've both compiled a top 5 Young Guns to go after, Young Guns to invest in this series. And I want you to let us know your thoughts on it. But we'll let Brid go ahead and tell us his top 5, a little Young Guns power rankings coming out of the new Upper Deck 2021-2022 extended series, which released on Wednesday.
All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to come out here and say I really struggled to come up with my number 5 guy. The reason being for that is it's just a really, really, really weak class. And I've alluded to it previous to this. I'm not going to be picking this up. I'm going to be saving my money. However, if you guys want to go out and purchase this, if you guys want to go out and purchase just single cards, hop on eBay, go to your local card shop and pick up these particular 5 guys. Maybe 3, maybe 1, who knows? That's what I would do. But starting with number 5, I'm looking at Scott Perunovich. And Mike's probably shaking his head here. Mike's probably going, oh no, he's starting it off very strong with a defenseman, a
I don't mind
23-year-old defenseman.
I don't mind that pick.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, it's really going to be, there's different factors, and in the card hobby, we typically speaking, unless you got a guy like Hale McCarr or Adam Fox, we tend to stay away from defensemen. Um, as the saying goes, chicks dig the long ball. While in hockey, goals are typically speaking what get you a lot of money. But yeah, either way, Mike, I'm going to go with Scott Perunovich here, just because if there is a guy who's going to put up some points, this is going to be him. Now he is older; he's 23 years old, which means his path to the Hall of Fame not likely, not likely at all. But I mean, someone who's going to put up some points, whether or not the St. Louis Blues can continue to, put up some long playoff stretches. We hopefully they get back to it, right? Hopefully they can win some more Stanley Cups. But for now, Scott Perunovich is going to be my number 5 guy. All right, you want me to keep going with number 4?
Yeah, I think we'll do your top 5, then we'll do Mike.
We'll go through your top 5, and then I'll go through my top 5. So who do you got number 4?
Alrighty, so number 4, I got John Peterka. So John Peterka, really interesting pick for myself. German guy playing with Buffalo, but I like him for a variety of reasons. Number 1, this is a guy who's putting up points, right? And he's young. He's 20 years old. So even if it takes him a while to, kind of find his stride in Buffalo and put up points, he's still 20 years old. So I really like the upside there. Anytime that you can have someone who's younger, it just makes guys much more investable. So I really like him, whether or not he actually pans out in the NHL is to be seen. But again, bear with me, guys, because this entire class is weaker, like I said.
Yeah.
Number 3. Number 3 is a guy who I'm really high on. I want to see him kind of break out of his shell. I want to see him do more. But regardless, I think his team is very up and coming. And that's Alex Turcotte, just 21 years young. This is a guy with the U.S. national team. He was phenomenal. There's a reason why he was a top 5 pick in the 2019 NHL draft. Even played some time at Wisconsin. And Mike, I'm a big fan of NCAA sports as a whole, and he did very well there. I don't think it's a league to be slept on. I think a lot more players are opting to go that college route, and Alex Turcotte is a really good player. Again, hasn't played much in the NHL, but I think that when he gets there, he's going to put up points. The market may not be the best, but then again, it's not an original 6 team. It's not a Canadian team, but at least, he's playing in LA, and there's a lot of people who he can reach at least.
Yeah, it's not the worst market. Like LA is definitely not the worst market. Dave, you want to say something about
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is like, a lot of this value, is it based on where the guys are playing? You just brought up Buffalo, which is another big hockey market too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why you maybe value certain guys in your list right now higher than others?
Yeah, like I said, first and foremost, probably going to be, well, maybe not first, because age, typically speaking, is a big one. But then again, right? I mean, if you got a guy like Kirill Kaprizov just a couple years ago, I mean, he came in the league and he was basically a grown man, but it didn't seem to matter because A, he put up the points, and B, Minnesota is a really big hockey market. It may be a Canadian hockey market that's not New York, that's not, anywhere super big, but it's still a relatively big market. So I'm looking personally for, is this player young? Is he on a relatively successful team? But most importantly, a big market. So I said it earlier, I think original 6 team is probably going to be right behind Canadian markets, just because here in Canada we absolutely love hockey. Even if you have a stud player who plays on a good team, you know in that original 6 market, even Boston, the reality is it's not a Canadian market. And people in Boston, when Tom Brady was there at least, and when the Celtics were winning, and when the Red Sox were winning, it just gets overshadowed. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors that go into this.
Yeah, and actually a really good indicator of when it comes to driving it based on where the guy plays. Just if you're taking a look at some of the so it dropped today, right? Or dropped. We're recording this on Wednesday, so it did
Yep.
drop today. At the time of this recording, and you go and you look at what what the asking price is for Michael Pezzetta and Justin Barron, 2 rookies for the Montreal Canadiens, arguably the best hockey market outside of the Toronto Maple Leafs in the world, and those guys are going for way above what they should be based on their talent level. Like
Mhm.
I was looking, and Michael Pezzetta is selling for like roughly $20, as is Justin Barron, and it's strictly because they are Montreal Canadiens prospects, and they know there's going to be a lot of people within that market that are going to be looking to collect that player. And it's the end of the day, it all comes down to supply and
Mhm.
demand. But the final 2 players on your list, I'm sure it has nothing to do with. Is I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with it because I know who is in the set, but I don't think it has to do with market. These are 2 players that surely have to do with their skill level, putting them up at the
Yep.
top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, to be honest, I mean, I've done enough of these with you where I know that you're going to hammer out the top 5 as it should be. And I'm kind of going to pick and choose some other guys. I knew, and again, I don't know what your top 5 is, but that is why I went with number 2, Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis, man, this is a kid who does a lot of things right. I'm a big fan of his. My New York Rangers absolutely made this guy look like a rag doll a few times. Made him look silly in the playoffs. I'd like to see him put on more body weight because, he might break by the end of 2023. If a guy like Jacob Trouba hits him one more time, he's not going to exist for much longer. But with that being said, this is a guy who played relatively important minutes in that rookie season. And I thought he did okay. 40 points in 68 games. That's not bad at all. And only 18 penalty minutes. This is a guy who, when he's on, he's putting up good numbers. He's putting up quality minutes. And again, he's playing a really important role there. On a team of bunch of jerks. And I truly believe that it's only a few years away until they're hoisting a cup. Like that's a really young nucleus and a really good, hockey, maybe not hockey market, but their Twitter game's strong. And believe it or not, that's important in this market.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
number 1, again, I don't believe, I just want to go out on the record and say, I don't believe that there's a true chase card, even the true chase card. You can make a case for a few guys, but I went with Alexander Holtz. I truly believe this is going to be a guy who just comes into the league and takes it over by storm. Um, you know, if and when he gets to play with Jack Hughes, that's certainly going to be exciting. New Jersey, maybe not the biggest hockey market, but then again, the talent is just there. I mean, you can look at it. Uh, 47 points in 38 games. What else did he have here? 51 points with Utica Comets in just 52 games. There's a reason why he was a top 10 draft pick. So yeah, that's my top 5. Again, if you're just a casual listening to hockey, I'm sure your audience doesn't have that. But if you guys are just kind of getting into the hockey card market, I would personally advise you to pick up the single cards that you want to buy. And also, don't go picking these cards up when this episode drops. Don't go picking them up. You're just going to overpay.
Yeah, wait a few weeks. These card values will drop immensely, like they typically do. It's always most expensive the day of, and even throughout the rest of the week. And then eventually they'll start to fall. That said, that's not always the case. If you'll recall last year, do you remember who the top player from last year's extended series ended up becoming? Not at the time of the drop, but ended up becoming
No clue.
Michael Bunting.
Oh my
He
goodness.
was not a member of the
Locked on
Toronto.
Leafs. You guys love
Wasn't a
them.
member of the Toronto Maple Leafs at the time. There we go, a little ticker. We've got your top 5 there down below for
Hopefully
those
I got
on
it in the right
YouTube.
order. Pretty sure I did.
Yeah, so who he has in his top spot: Alexander Holtz of the New Jersey Devils, Seth Jarvis of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Alex Turcotte of the LA Kings, JJ Peterka for the Sabres, and then Scott Perunovich of the St. Louis Blues. Not a sexy list, and that's really what I think we most people in the hockey card collecting community realize pretty quickly, that this extended series Young Guns class not strong at all. I mean, when you're talking about guys like Holtz and Jarvis as your chase cards, compare that to who were the chase cards in Series 1 and 2. Yeah, Caulfield and Zegras and McTavish, Mo Sider, Lucas Raymond. Like, those guys are much sexier players to go out and chase. So I'm with you when I say, if you're looking to, I mean, if you're just a collector, you love to rip, and you just want to have the full set, sure, whatever. That's your prerogative. But you come at it from an investing standpoint, and that's ripping to get. Hopefully you get a Seth Jarvis, or hopefully you get an Alexander Holtz or Turcotte. There's better ways to get it. Realistically, you can get this entire list for less than what you'll spend on a hobby box. So I agree. From an investing standpoint, probably not a hobby box that's worth buying. But if you want to just go out and collect those cards, that's why you got your local card shops. You can pick them up on eBay, wherever, and you can go and get yourself that Jarvis, that Holtz, or whatever. We had a very similar list we did. Like, I had Jarvis. I had Jarvis and Holtz as my 1-2. I had Turcotte at 3. That's it. I had Jarvis as number 1, but you had Holtz. Sure. I switched those two, and then I had Turcotte, Peterka. I had Nico Dawes as my number 5 player, and
he was my 6.
So it's strictly because he's the goaltender of the future, I believe, for the New Jersey Devils, and this is a team that I think is on the up and up. So if he can, grow into what we thought he could be when he led Canada in the World Juniors a couple of years back, maybe perhaps he becomes a valued card where people remember that and say, hey, I want his rookie card. And again, supply and demand is always going to be the clear, kind of the clear, or the main objective, I suppose. And that's how you're going to get your bottom dollar. Just really quickly, I had mentioned that Pizzetta and Justin Barron were 2 guys who, for the Montreal Canadiens, their prices were really high. For the Maple Leafs, just one rookie in this class for the Maple Leafs, and that is Alex Steeves of the Leafs, and his card right now roughly $10 I saw on opening day. So no, not too expensive if you want to get yourself an Alex Steeves rookie card, if you for all you Leaf fans out there. But yeah, really appreciate taking the time to join us today, Brid, and letting us know a little bit more about the new hockey card series that was released, the Upper Deck Extended Series for 21-22. And hopefully we can chat with you again down the road and get into some more hockey card stuff as the season gets a little bit closer. Appreciate your time, Brid.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, that's going to do it for us here on today's podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And also follow Brid. You can follow him on Twitter, and also go check out his YouTube channel, Red Cape Sports. And also for those college football fans, why don't you tell our good listeners what you're going to be starting up pretty soon for college football?
Yeah, so the first episode actually drops August 21st. Definitely go follow us on Twitter right now. That's where we're posting a bunch of awesome content until the launch date, and that's at RS Freshman, and that's freshman with an E, not an A. And yeah, it's just the place to go for your best college football podcast.
There you go.
One of
college football fans, go hit up my guy Brid Bouchard. He yammers and talks my ears off about college football all the time, so I know he knows his stuff. Leave a like on this video if you would like to do that, and go ahead, comment down below. Are you interested in more hockey card content? Should we talk about it a little more? Are you somebody who wants to get into it? And if you are buying some extended series, who are the players who you're excited to go out and collect from this year's set? Let us know in the comment section down below if you're watching here on YouTube. All right, for Dave and Brid, I'm Mike DiStefano. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.